I'm Jess Learmonth. I'm a British... No, hang on. Sorry. Why do I have to say Do it again. Sorry, Brad. Hi, I'm Jess Learmonth, British GB triathlete, and you're listening to the performance... No.
The Physical Performance Show.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Jess Learmonth, GB triathlete, and you're listening to the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by the very good folk at Precision Hydration. It's time to stop guessing about your hydration needs and get knowledge in your hands. And also the Physical Performance Show's Learnings membership and Pogo Physio's telehealth online consultations. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. And of course, we do this across a range of our different episodes, interest editions, coaches corners, expert editions, and featured performers. And hot off the back of last week's expert edition featuring New Zealand-based sports scientist Dr. Will O'Connor on all things running with power, we jump over to the UK for this week's featured performer featuring triathlon sensation, British Triathlon Olympic team member, Jess Learmonth. Now, you are in for a real treat with Jess. She's a great personality in the sport of triathlon and such a talent. Jess has a great story as BBC Sport published in 2020. Jess Learmonth, from supermarket worker to Olympic medal hopeful. In 2019, Jess and British compatriot Georgia Taylor-Brown took line honours in the 2019 Tokyo Olympic Triathlon test event, however, were controversially disqualified under a technicality when they crossed the line hand in hand. That performance, amongst many others, however, really puts Jess in the medal mix for Tokyo 2021, the Olympic Games. By way of bio, Jess burst onto the elite triathlon scene in 2016 with her first European Cup win, before going on to finish in the top 10 at the World Triathlon Series Leeds event a few months later in front of her hometown fans. Further to that, Jess collected the silver medal in the overall World Triathlon Series rankings for 2019, collected silver at the 2018 Commonwealth Games held here on the Gold Coast, and also silver in the mixed teams relay with Great Britain, and having recently been named in the Great British team for the 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games, Jess is a name in the sport to certainly watch. Now, as mentioned, in addition, Jess is quite the character, so I know you're going to really enjoy the highs, lows, and career learnings from Jess Learmonth on this featured performer episode. Here is my conversation with Jess Learmonth. Jess Learmonth, welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
Jess, prior to pressing record, you were sharing that you've listened to episodes in the past, and you suggested that you don't know what people will find interesting about your story. And I challenged your thinking, saying that how could we not find what the BBC Sport in March 2020 published as their story, which says, Jess Learmonth, from supermarket worker to Olympic medal hopeful. That is an intriguing story.
Well, I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, I've done quite a few podcasts, but I'm definitely nervous about this one because, like I said to you, I listened to your podcast before I met you, and it was more for educational reasons because I swear to God, my mind's just turning into mush being a triathlete. I think I need to keep it stimulated. So I used to listen to yours. So I just feel for people that might tune in thinking that they might find anything educational, because I'm pretty sure they won't. But anyway.
Well, Jess, I think you seem to be known and and loved as quite a personality in the sport. And I think people are going to get a little insight into your personality today. One of the former featured guests of the show, obviously British compatriot Georgia Taylor-Brown, she did quip when the conversation turned to your and Georgia's 2019 Tokyo Olympic test event disqualification. She did quip that in the lead up to that, giving the context for why it was that you girls locked arms across the finish line, Georgia quipped that there's definitely no hugs from Jess. Jess said, come on, we're getting on with this. We're going to do this. So I think that was a little insight into your personality, but now we get the full Monty.
She's trying to say that I'm really hard-faced, isn't she? She doesn't realise, but I hug everyone else, and just not her, you see. But, tough love.
Well, it seems like you have a soft spot for Georgia. You do on social media post and refer to her as the little G. Yeah.
Oh no, I definitely do. I'm only joking. She's a really close friend, and we have a good laugh. And she's, I don't know, just really easy to get on with. I just find her really chilled. She's probably one of the best people to be with around races. And I just think we can be ourselves together. And she's just lovely, and we have a good laugh. So I'm really lucky. And it's not just G, I guess. A lot of the GB girls are all the same. So. We're really lucky that we can room together, and everyone's really laid back and no one's really too uptight, so it's great.
You've said in the past, Jess, that you really never thought of yourself as a sporty person. You wouldn't have classed yourself as a sporty person. I find that intriguing, that statement. Looking from the outside in, it would just seem like you've always identified as an athlete, and a very talented one at that, one that's now named as part of the Team GB triathlon team for Tokyo 2020. So how is it that Jess wouldn't class herself as a sporty person in the past?
I don't know. I don't even know when I said that, because I actually would. I would class myself as sporty, but not an elite athlete. So from growing up and in school, I was always sport orientated. That's all I was good at. So because I wasn't very good at academically, I really struggled, and I had dyslexia, and I just really wasn't interested in exams and that sort of thing. So the only thing I seemed to excel in was sport. So I was very driven to that, and I really enjoyed it. And to be honest, without sport, I think I would be totally different. You know, I wouldn't probably be as social and kind of as confident. I'm not very confident at all, even as an athlete. But I think I'd be a lot worse if it wasn't for sport. So, I think I am a sporty person, but just not a high end. I would never have imagined going to the Olympics or be selected or anything like that. It seems quite bizarre to me that I've ended up here, really.
And when you posted to social, when you did or were announced as part of the Great British team, your comment was, "It's never too late to achieve something great." So I think this is inspiring. You can not relate yourself to be an elite athlete, never have necessarily those aspirations, but here you are, and coming off the back of the Commonwealth Games in 2018, where you picked up silver medals in both the mixed team relay and also the women's race. Your co-victory, if you like, with Georgia Taylor-Brown in the test event in 2019 in Tokyo. How are you handling what is inevitably going to be some pressure around a podium for Tokyo?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually, because I've never felt pressure from the very beginning. I do think it's a lot to do with, as you say, coming into the sport late, having a life outside of sport. So up until I was 23, I pretty much just did a little bit of sport here and there, just alongside working full time. And me and John had our own home, and we were just living a normal life. He was full time, I was. We did things on our day off, but we lived, like I said, a normal life. So I think coming into sport late, then doing all right, every time I did well, I don't know, I took it as I can't explain, but because I don't expect anything, I don't have any pressure, I guess I'm trying to say. Everything's a bonus, I've come into the sport late. And
you didn't have any expectations coming in, and on the way out, you'll have no expectations either.
Yeah.
But we know that you'll you've indicated that you're a highly competitive person. So I think if you put Jess Learmonth on a start line, look no further than the Arena Games Super League Triathlons, spin-off series, if you like, from the traditional racing we'd expect, where you lined up there in Rotterdam. And I think it was Amsterdam, wasn't it? The Arena Games?
No, Rotterdam,
yeah. In 2020. And you were ferocious. There were some of those pictures, and you went to a deep, dark place in the hurt box that during that event to win. So there's a drive inside you.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps when, you're training all the time, and I think you need to get the best out of yourself. And I think, I just really, really enjoy it. So like if I'm injured or if I'm not training or we're off, we're having an off season or what have you, I always say to John, I just really miss trying hard. And he thinks I'm absolutely mental because he's like the complete opposite. He likes to train, but he's not too interested in, doing hill reps as hard as he can or whatever. But I just get into a little zone and I just really, really enjoy it. And that's the bit that I think I enjoy the most out of training. So I think if you do enjoy that type of training, then it definitely helps because, most people probably don't like that part. But I love it.
And that's intriguing to me because you stopped swimming competitively, I believe, as a 17-year-old, where you were quite a gifted swimmer. That's pretty much a slogfest, a junior swimming career. So obviously there's a bit of a disconnect there. You love pushing yourself, but you got to a point with your junior swimming where enough was enough. Yeah,
I think that's where it stemmed from, really, because from a young age, that's all you do in swimming, isn't it? Like you don't have any burn impact or anything like that. So you literally every session was like flat out. And I think it got to this time when all my friends were going out. Me and John got together when we were 15. So we'd been going out for 2 years and I just kind of grew out of it, I think. And I just got bored of it, just got bored of every day going to the session thinking, how hard is it going to be? So I think now I'm doing triathlon. Not every day is hard. I'll have a hard session pretty much nearly every day, but it's a different variety. It's a bit more interesting. So, I'm only doing 2 hard swims, 2 hard bikes and probably 2 hard runs. So there's a lot more variety. So I think I just enjoy that a lot more. And if I'm honest, I just think, well, it's not as bad as when we swam because swimming's just so hard. I honestly don't know how they do it. So I think that's helped me mentally.
Yeah. Totally. And your entry point to triathlon, if I've researched correctly, is quite the funny little story with your workmates there at the supermarket where you're working full time. I've got to ask, what was your role at the supermarket?
Well, I did a few different things, but I was in admin. So I did like the cash office where, you count up all the tills. And then, just admin. So it was all like pricing and ticketing and stuff. But I was also till trained, Brad. So, jack of all trades. You had
the skills for the entire place. But then there was an upcoming charity event, a fun event that was a triathlon. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there was only 5 of us and we just did it as this supermarket's like really small. And there was only 5 of us and we just did it off our own back to raise money. I think it could have been Comic Relief because over here we do Comic Relief and Sainsbury's, the brand of supermarket, gets like behind it. So we did a mini triathlon and I took it really serious and so that's where the career started, you see.
Did you realise during that little fundraising triathlon that you had a bit of ability, or was it this that you enjoyed the challenge? What made you keep going? Or did someone go, crikey, we better give you some training time? Oh,
well, I actually thought when I finished, right, this is it. In a few years, I'm going to be at the Olympics. And no, I didn't really at all. No, I probably finished it and thought, oh, that was really hard. And then I think I left it another year or so before I did another one. So I obviously wasn't that motivated. But I think I just really enjoyed it. My dad had done triathlons in the 80s, so I knew all about it, but I just never really bothered. I'm just not that driven, Brad. I just like float through life, you see. So if I was a bit more driven, I think I'd probably been doing triathlon a lot earlier. But
This is interesting. Your father was a triathlete in the 80s. I mean, the 80s were pioneering days for triathlon worldwide. What was your dad's involvement with the sport?
Well, he just did it locally. He was actually, I think, amongst a few others that set up the first triathlon club in Yorkshire, so in our county. There was hardly anybody involved at the time, but he did like national race and stuff. But I remember him saying he raced with Glenn Cook, but like he was obviously just regional sort of level. But yeah, some of the stories from back then that they'd be swimming in like a Otley Lake near us, and they'd all be having hypothermia. And he said he'd been got out the swim once on the bike, and he had his head down, and he were in the lead, and he thought, yeah, this is really good, it's going really well. And then he said he looked up like halfway through the bike and had no idea where he was. And he'd like just got hypothermic, and just instead of like taking, the loop on the bike, he just carried on. And because he was that cold, he had no idea. So he were like, I went from leading the race to like ended up in York or something. So yeah, it makes me feel a bit of a wimp now when we think about us with wetsuits and stuff. But maybe that's why.
They were early pioneering days, and there didn't seem to be many triathlon comforts or luxuries back then, that's for sure. But that's fascinating. So is that where you get your genes from, or does your mother contribute as well?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably from my dad. He's a bit of I do think he's a bit of a nutter. He tries, like I thought I tried hard in training and stuff, and he's just insane. Like he's 60 odd now, and he's addicted to Zwift, and he'll be going ridiculously hard, and I'm like, Dad, just go easy, like you don't have to try that hard. So I think I probably get it from him. Yeah, I think.
That's the family lineage. And then one thing I found quite amusing and I think inspiring is that for London 2012, the Olympic Games, you went with John, your partner, and you watched the triathlon. Now I'm not sure if you caught the women's race or the men's race. Which one did you catch, or both?
It was the women's, yeah. Because we went down, we got tickets for the cycling in the velodrome, and then I think it was the day after the women's run, so we were like, oh, brilliant, we'll go down and watch that, yeah. And
you were surprised at how many people were there, and at that point, had you connected with you or maybe in your very early triathlon days, or not really, or you hadn't even yet done that local charity triathlon?
Yeah, no, I'd done. I'm pretty sure I'd done some triathlons, and I was kind of getting more into it. So I knew the girls that were racing and things. So then meeting them afterwards, it was like mental, because I'd obviously watched them, like Helen and Luce and Vix, and then yeah, in a few years' time, I remember when I first got on programme. And I went to Leeds to train with them, and I thought, this is absolutely mental. It's just so bizarre to be thinking that, I was just watching them, and them as athletes, like elite athletes, but then I was kind of like in the same group. So, it was just weird, very weird.
That weekend of triathlon, or those 2 days, I should say, of triathlon were in many ways the 2 days that really elevated the standing of the sport worldwide. I mean, the crowds, the spectacle racing out the front of Buckingham Palace, it was a sight to behold. Obviously, the men's event really garnered a lot of attention with the Brownlee brothers' outstanding double podium there. You watched that race as well, I presume, and that must have been quite inspiring.
Yeah, I was actually at work at the time. I remember having it on the TVs, and I worked at a gym at that point. So I was kind of like in and out trying to watch it, but it was very inspirational. And to be fair, they've definitely put triathlon on the map. So even back then, I think it's grown even more since then, since I've been involved. So it is amazing to see, it progress through as a sport.
I think that the next time I saw triathlon gain international simultaneous headlines was maybe obviously the London successes for Team GB, and then Alistair and Johnny, obviously the famous / infamous Cancun finish line, where obviously Alistair assists Johnny across the finish line. And then came the next great British bit of history, which was your already mentioned dual disqualification with Georgia Taylor-Brown at the test event. So there's this theme that Great Britain just seems to put triathlon on the world news map. It must feel good to have been part of the world putting triathlon on further on the map.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But I mean, ours was a bit more of a Doylem sort of incident. So I don't know if it's good to be known for that, especially when, once it happens, everyone's like, as if you didn't know that rule. And I think, oh, no, I didn't. I just had no idea. And you just feel a bit of an idiot. But doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, the rule, and we should give context. Can you actually briefly give context for those that missed Georgia Taylor Brown's episode? Jump back and tune in. But what happened at the test event, Jess, in 2019, Tokyo? Hot conditions, unbelievably hot. The women's race, from memory, was shortened in distance.
Yeah, so the run instead of 10K was 5K. And me and Georgia had we'd been training a lot together prior to the test event. We'd had a good race, everything seemed to have gone to plan. We were kind of trying to get rid of people on the bike that weren't working, and we just worked well together. And then on the run, we were side by side with a bit of a gap off the bike, because we've been together so much and helped each other. And this was a test event, so it wasn't anything to do with points or things like that. So we just decided that when we got to the blue carpet, we kind of cross the finish line together and enjoy it together. And we didn't realise that was against the rules, and we actually got disqualified because we have to be seen to race an event, which, I get that. And I think it wasn't actually a rule until, I could be wrong, but I think Alan John did it the year before London 2012. Apparently, this is what I was told in Madrid. I mean, I could be wrong here, but I think they did it and they brought the ruling in then. But we figured that, I didn't actually do triathlon at the time when that was first brought in. And I think Georgia was probably, I think I said before, in primary school. So we both weren't really involved in the sport, so we didn't know the rules. And a lot of people have told me afterwards on social media that I should know the rule book. So what can I say? I've not read it.
Well, I mean, the rule... obviously, Jess, you've probably since come across, but it is Rule 2.11F, and it says athletes who finish in a contrived tie situation where no effort to separate their finish times has been made will be disqualified. And I understand it from the sports view, and to their credit, obviously there's a rule book and their job's to enforce that. Certainly understand it from an athlete point of view in the heat of the moment, and I can just look at it and see that, well, better to happen in a test event than the real thing, right?
That's very true, yeah. Can you imagine?
Anyone racing that day knew who crossed the line first. And as you say, it stood for nothing, no points other than the experience. So you certainly magnified the experience.
It certainly did, yeah, definitely. But I thought they'd just go for the photo finish and just decide then. And that's the thing, we both weren't even bothered. Whoever won, it didn't matter to us. They could decide, we weren't sprinting to think, right, well, we want to both win. We'd have been happy if they decided who won. But I mean, it was stupid. But
were you disappointed, or were you just like, c'est la vie?
Oh, no. Well, to be honest, I think because they decided that I'd crossed the finish line first before we found out we were disqualified. So I was like, Georgia, I've never won anything like this. This is brilliant. So she was like, oh, well done. This is great. So then when then Ben came over, our head coach, and said, oh, no, you've been DQ'd. I was like, oh, what? I've never won anything. So then Georgia got really upset because she was like, you've never won anything before. So she was getting really upset, and we're like, oh, don't worry about it. And I think we got over it in 5 minutes, something, because we still did a good performance for us, so we weren't that bothered. But
no, exactly. And I mean, Georgia had more pressing concerns at home with her partner, obviously fracturing his neck in a cycling incident, and going through some significant rehabilitation. So it puts things into perspective.
Oh, certainly does. Yeah, she did. Oh my God, she did unbelievable. You wouldn't believe, how mentally tough she is. It's staggering. And to perform all the time just under, things like that. If John broke his neck back home and you're not with him, and it's unbelievable. Yeah,
I think that's part of the context that people maybe didn't have watching on, that, there'd been a bit going on behind the scenes, and in that moment of an emotional finish, it's like, hey, we're here together. Let's do it together. It wasn't just a feel good, there was more to it than just a feel good moment. There was a bit of context there. Jess, in terms of learnings, I know you've indicated that, for example, just ahead of the 2018 Commonwealth Games where you performed so well, silver medal, as already mentioned, in the individual event and also the mixed team relay, you'd worked through a little bit of a niggle leading into that, if I'm correct. What have you learned about managing your body, trying to stay injury-free as an athlete?
Yeah, that was definitely a learning curve for me because it was, I think that led up to the injury. So I had a stress response in my hip about a month to 3 weeks out from the Commonwealth. So I didn't run at all until just the event because obviously I needed to get through the event. But I think leading up to that, because we was in Australia and it's completely different environment to what I'm used to. I'm like a heavy sweater and things like that. So I've been training out there in a camp with the GB guys. No, actually, it was England, but yeah, we were all there together, Welsh. And I think because I'd lost so much sweat all the time and I wasn't replenishing it, I wasn't on any calcium, I wasn't on, I wasn't taking salt and things like that. I think it kind of added to the fact that I got this bone injury and also the different terrains. Like as soon as you go abroad, you don't realise how used your body gets in your own environment. And even like recently when I saw you this time last year, we were on the Gold Coast and you have like, it's like hard cement. Whereas over here we have like tarmac that's a lot softer and obviously it rains quite a bit and we have trails and things like that. And I think my body just gets used to that. So when I came over, I was picking up niggles all the time just from training in different areas. So I learned quite a lot about making sure that, you know where you're going and make sure you take all the supplements you need and adapting to different environments, really. So that was a big learning curve for me and probably my first kind of experience of an injury like that, really. And I was just lucky that we caught it early and I was still able to race, really. Because if I'd have continued training for another 3 weeks, I probably wouldn't have been able to race. So
the Commonwealth Games where you took the silver medal, I mean, it's an interesting point. It's something that we can easily overlook, and that is with the huge sweat losses that endurance athletes, i.e. triathletes, or any endurance athlete endures, there's a lot of calcium being lost in that sweat, and therefore the ingestion for calcium is much higher than the recommended daily allowance. And so if you're in a hotter environment, you'd expect your loss to be greater, which obviously you've since learnt from. Yeah. It makes me think, Jess, navigating the third lockdown there in the UK at the moment, I think everyone in the world sympathises with the situation there in Europe. It must be hard. You've endured a long, cold winter and getting out there, getting enough sun. I mean, supplementing with vitamin D, I guess. Yeah, we're on supplements pretty much, most of the winter because obviously even if it is sunny here, it's not strong enough to get any vitamin D at all. So we are told, from as soon as we kind of finish the season to be on vitamin D because, we just don't get enough sun, which is really depressing when you think about it. If John talks about it, he's like, how ridiculous. We shouldn't even live here. This is ridiculous that we have to supplement. Because we don't get enough sunlight. But it's been pretty tough. And the weather, I don't think I've ever spent, I know it sounds ridiculous, I've never spent a winter in England, really. Because like even last year we were over with you in Australia. And it's been quite tough because I think, oh God, I didn't realise it goes on for this long. Like the snow and the ice and you can't go out until the sun's up and it's like, thawed out slightly and it just seems to have gone on for so long. So I'm so glad that Zwift were invented, honestly, because it's been a godsend, really. I mean, from the warm, balmy conditions of the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast in January 2020 to, who would have ever imagined what 2020 would hold in store? It must have been moments, I know your country, your colleagues, your fellow country men and women have indicated that, the lockdown has just been brutal psychologically and moving the goalposts of the Olympics, the uncertainty around would 2021 even happen. How have you kept your head above water? Or have there been moments? There's a bottle behind you on the shelf, but I don't think it's an alcoholic bottle unless I'm mistaken. Maybe it is. It is.
It's actually, half full. That's part. It's quite nice, actually. We just have a little double.
So maybe that's how.
Yeah, it's not actually empty, so that's a good sign, Brad, because it should be empty. But no, it has probably been difficult when we talk about like highs and lows of careers. I've struggled even thinking of lows, but this year's probably been one of the years where it's been just difficult because of the uncertainty. It's so hard to plan anything when you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know if it's going to be cancelled. And, with the races last year, it kind of goes up and down, especially over here with COVID cases. We seem to get a ball rolling and start doing better, and then things get worse again. So, yeah, it's just so uncertain, and it's so hard to plan things. And I think I've kind of learn that you've just got to be adaptable, and I think a lot of athletes will come out of this situation a lot stronger because they just have got to adapt and got to change, and people don't like change, but it's kind of taught me that I can spice things up in my training and do different things. And like, I didn't swim for God knows how long, and it didn't really affect me that much. Not that I'm going to not swim. Yeah, so I've decided that I'm not going to swim at all, only 2 months before a race. But do you know what I mean? If someone said to you before, you're going to have 3 months of swimming, you'd think, are you mad? But you don't realise how adaptable you actually are. So I think it's been a big learning curve, but also quite stressful.
Yeah, gosh. And do you feel like some of that stress is passing with more certainty around Tokyo, or you still feel it? You're still living it week to week in some ways?
Yeah, I've kind of gone down the route of thinking it's on until someone tells me that it's definitely not on. It's on in my mind, because I think otherwise you just spend so long just looking at Twitter and thinking of that it's not going to go ahead, and what will you do? And there's a lot more thinking around it if it doesn't go ahead, whereas all I've got to think about is training and day-to-day things if I know that it's going ahead. So, yeah, I try and not look at Twitter and just kind of think that things are going ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the sentiment is that the world needs it, and come on, let's pull something together. I mean, Australia can host the Australian Open, right? And pull off I mean, the logistics are a little bit different, but let's hope. And I think it would give the world something to celebrate collectively. So I think everyone's got their fingers crossed. You're listening to Jess Learmonth, British Triathlon Olympic team member, on this featured performer episode. Support for today's show comes from the great folk at Precision Hydration. On episode 234, we featured Precision Hydration's co-founder, Andy Blow, on an expert edition around all things hydration science. If you missed that episode, I strongly encourage you to jump back and extract the many learnings from that episode that Andy shared. It was incredibly popular. And one of the key takeaways from Andy's sharings on episode 234 was that there is not a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to hydration for our racing and training. And that's simply because everyone loses a different amount of salt in their sweat. Now, I followed up the expert edition with Andy with my own sweat test, and it turns out that personally, I lose about half the amount of salt in my sweat that the average athlete loses. Now, armed with that information, I've been able to design a hydration plan for my training and racing with the help of Precision Hydration. And if you've ever struggled with issues like cramp during long hot sessions, or just want to ensure you optimize your performance for your next upcoming event, then check out precisionhydration.com. If you can't get to a sweat test center like I did, then you can take their free online sweat test to get your personalized hydration strategy to test in training. And the great folk at Precision Hydration have offered 15% off your first electrolyte order simply by using the code PERFORMANCE, all capitals, 15 when checking out. In addition to the free sweat test online, which is a must and arms you with such valuable information, the Precision Hydration team have made themselves available for free online 20-minute video calls to work through any of your questions regarding your hydration strategy. So jump over to precisionhydration.com and take the free online sweat test right now. Stop guessing and get informed about your hydration strategy and needs. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's telehealth consultations. If you are an endurance athlete struggling with bone, tendon, or joint-related concerns, then our 45-minute online telehealth consultations can help you get back to your physical best. Join athletes from around the world working with myself and the Pogo Physio team online simply by jumping over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth. And finally, support for today's show comes from the Physical Performance Show's Learnings membership. If you would like to support the production of the show from just $5 per month, then you can now do so over at Patreon. Simply search the Physical Performance Show from patreon.com and there you can pledge your support. Now, in return, we'd like to say thanks and grant you complimentary access to all upcoming live stream events and all back catalogued live stream events, including 2020's very popular live streams featuring Dr. Shona Halson on all things optimizing recovery and Dr. Stephen Seiler on all things polarized training. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, Jess Learmonth, Great British Olympic Triathlon team member. Jess, let's launch into a performance round. So these are rapid fire questions. You've tuned in before. Now the pressure's on you. All right. So here we go. You ready?
Yeah.
Training session most disliked.
Bike session.
Specifically?
Probably hill reps.
For example?
It'd probably be about 6 by 4 minutes up a steep hill.
With what recovery?
Just descending.
Just dropping back down.
No pedaling. That's the worst bit, yeah.
Yeah, just dropping back down. Jess, training session most loved?
Probably a threshold swim, which would be we do things like about 100 VO2, so it's like get out speed, straight into like 3 200s threshold off a 115, turn around, then back into a 50 VO2, and then, a couple of 400 threshold on 115, turn around, and then twice.
Oof, on 115 as a cycle? So like if it were 200 off 230 or whatever. Yeah, so that's some serious swimming. Favourite pre-race meal, Jess?
It used to be pizza, but now I'm attached to Georgia. It's got to be rice involved. So, yeah, we'd normally go poke bowl, actually. So some sort of... People say to avoid fish, but we'd go for, like, fish, some beans and, just you'll know about poke bowls. They're well popular over there. A poke bowl, do you call it? Or do you call it poke bowl?
Either poke or poke, yeah. So, but we know rice and fish. Bedtime, morning time. What does that look like for Jess Learmonth?
Mornings about 6:30, and then bedtime, I like to go up at 10 and be asleep by 10:30.
Who's the athlete Jess Learmonth most admires and why?
Helen Jenkins, because she is just an all-round good egg. Good, amazing athlete, really, really nice, just lovely about everyone, but also can have a good laugh. She's now a mother and still training at a high level and just very inspirational.
Helen Jenkins, toughest competitor you've ever raced against, Jess? Who's that and why?
Probably Flora, just because she's good at everything.
And that's
how can you be doing good at everything?
You're referring to Flora Duffy, who took the gold medal in the 2018 Commonwealth Games here on the Gold Coast. Yeah,
she's pretty good. A close call by Katie as well. So it's when they're good at everything, all three events. It's really
tough,
difficult. Yeah,
that's Katie Zafiris, US triathlete. Is there a mantra, Jess, that you use when you're competing or racing or training for that matter? Regular self-talk?
Not at all, no. I don't have anything like that. No, I'm not into mantras or anything. Just roll with it and enjoy it, I think. But I wouldn't say that to myself before a session. It
sounds like something that typifies your approach. Just roll with it. Best recovery tip, Jess, what's that?
Sleep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Are you a napper?
Funny you should say that. I'm not, but I do get a consistent good night's sleep. But yeah, I don't like napping. I do when I'm with Georgia because she's had a bit. Well, I've got no choice. But that's one thing I should work on. Yeah, napping is very important, and I don't do it enough.
What don't you like about it?
Just missing out on life.
Missing out on life.
Yeah, I honestly think the day goes too quick then, isn't it? It's gone. You wake up, you think, oh, God, the day's gone. And then I worry that I like to make sure I sleep at night. And if I nap in the day, you can get in a bad cycle if you don't get a good night's sleep. Because then you want to nap again. Do you know what I mean? So I just go for the long nap.
A quality night's sleep. One word to describe Jess's racing style. What is it?
Maybe aggressive. Don't know if that's a good word, but I'm just quite aggressive, as in I'm very heavy-handed and I thrash about in the swim, and I'm just a bit all over the place. So I'd probably say aggressive.
So aggressive, not in mindset, but you mean aggressive in physicality.
Yeah. Because I'm quite clumsy as well and really heavy-handed and just a bit brash. How would you describe being in the zone? You mentioned before that you enjoyed swimming in your junior years for the reason that you could get into that zone. So how would you describe being in that zone, Jess? Being relaxed and concentrating. So once I get into, like I say, that you're struggling to breathe, but you're kind of controlled, I just find it quite relaxing. So I think I just get into a rhythm, and my mind just doesn't tell me to slow down or stop. It's quite difficult. So I think I just get into a little zone of enjoying it.
Rhythm and enjoyment. And when was the last time you were in the zone, Jess?
Quite a while now, actually. Yeah. Maybe I should get back into the zone soon. But I can imagine you've had your ups and downs through this COVID season. Jess, final question. We know that epic sessions don't make epic athletes necessarily, but what's the hardest session you can remember ever completing? Probably running. I think it was 8:76:54. 3. I think we finished at 3. I think it was. I seem to think it was a Malcolm Brown set. Running wise, it was just all flat out, and I don't think I've ever done anything like that again. I can't. I used to nip in and out of people's sessions, and I think I accidentally nipped into a Malcolm Brown running session, and I probably never again.
and that, just to be clear, that was a descending interval, fartlek or an interval session. So
that'd just be as fast as you can. Well, I don't know if it was meant
continuous.
To be, but that's what I did.
Continuous, you mean?
Sorry, no, then it must have been a recovery, probably not long.
Yeah.
Maybe a minute or so, yeah. So it was 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 6 minutes.
Yeah, you add up the minutes and there's a bit of work time there. Yeah. Jess, you're out of the performance round, so you can chalk that up as a training session for the day. On the learnings, you've come from a strong swimming background. You still example great swimming pedigree. What would be your top 3 tips for listeners out there wanting to improve their swim? Jess Learmonth's top 3 swimming tips.
Oh, God, you've caught. This is funny because I'm a good swimmer. Well, top swimming tips. Brad, I don't know. You're going to have to do a different tip. You could have prepped me on that. I've no idea. I just carry on swimming.
Well, that's one. Carry on swimming. Don't stop unless you have to for COVID.
Mileage. That's all I used to do. A lot of mileage. But, yeah.
And technique? What do you think about with your technique?
Well, yeah, I guess so. High elbow, good catch. But I think because it was drilled into me from a young age, I've never really thought about it since. So it's really difficult to give tips on something that I learned when I was about 8, do you know? So
well, what do you remember about the catch? What's your tip on the catch?
I just try and reach out, keep a high elbow and have a nice, swooping catch when I come in. But, a
swooping catch. And if people jump over to your Instagram, there's a video there of you with your swooping catch. as you say. Some nice underwater footage. So jump over, follow Jess on Instagram, and you can see this swooping catch. Jess, just on the strength and conditioning side of things, how important has that been to you, both performance-wise and injury prevention-wise, in these, last 8 years, I guess?
Probably I don't give it enough credit, actually, of how important it's been. I think when I first came on the programme for the British Triathlon, they do like tests and things, to see where you're at and how your calf strength is and your hip flexors and hamstrings, blah, blah, blah. And on some of the tests, I didn't even score anything, so I couldn't even do part of the tests. And I throughout the beginning of my career, I just used to have soleus injuries all the time, constant little niggles and things like that. So the British Triathlon have a strength and conditioning program, and I've kind of progressed all the way through. And now I do a lot better on all my little tests that we do, and I think I've become a lot more consistent, because I used to break down constantly running and things, not big injuries, just little silly injuries. And I think doing strength and conditioning twice a week for every week is probably highly important, even though I absolutely hate it and I find it so boring. And I really struggle with taking rests between reps and things. I just want to get it done because I just find it really boring stood around the gym. So, but it is highly, highly important. I can't stress it enough, actually, how important it is for keeping your body injury free.
And so you're doing your strength and conditioning in the gym. As you say, you find it boring. I think many athletes can empathise with the desire just to get it done. I certainly fall into that trap when I'm doing my work. I just want to get in and I want to get out as quickly as I can. To me, that's success, but obviously not always the smartest way to train. But alongside that, Jess, is there a home routine you might, for example, do quite routinely as well, or is your S&C purely in the gym for Jess?
Yeah, it is now. I did used to do a lot of, so when I brushed my teeth, I used to do a lot of calf raises, calf holds just on the step, because like I say, I used to get a lot of injuries, soleus injuries, things like that. And I found that around gym, I'd be doing it twice a day as well, because obviously I brush my teeth twice a day. Sometimes, maybe three, but no, twice a day. So I'd know that I'd do some sort of calf strengthening twice a day on top of gym. But since I have not had that many problems, touch wood, I've kind of knocked that on the head. But I do find, that and foam rolling, I'm a big stretcher and foam roller on an evening. I just find it, I don't know, it keeps me a bit more supple, and now I'm getting a bit older to work on it.
You're listening to Jess Learmonth on this week's Featured Performer episode, sharing on her career's highs, lows, and learnings. If you missed last week's episode, it was an expert edition featuring Dr. Will O'Connor on all things running with power, how to incorporate power data into your training and racing. It's been extremely popular, and here's a little snippet of my conversation with Dr. Will.
Another big differentiation between cycling and running is the stretch shortening energy, like return system, and gravity as well. You are still working relatively hard running downhill, and your power represents that. So if I'm, I want to run a 40-minute 10K, it's a bit of a hill in it. I want to try and run 4-minute Ks. I'm just going to do that all the way through, start to finish. Going up the hill, I've got to fight gravity. So then, mass times acceleration, I have to increase my acceleration to overcome the fact that gravity is acting greater upon me in order to travel the same distance. So now my power's up. And then on the downside, I have the support of gravity. So I don't need to exert as much force myself in order to maintain my 4-minute K. So my power's down, but it's not zero, like on a bike.
To enjoy the full episode featuring Will O'Connor, jump over to wherever it is that you enjoy your podcast from. We're also now available over on YouTube. And whilst there, peruse the archives dating all the way back to episode 1, featuring surf life-saving Ironman champion Ali Day. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, Jess Learmonth, great British triathlete, looking ahead to Tokyo 2021, the Olympic Games triathlon. Jess, fueling, it's such a topic for the endurance athlete. You've got some of the world-class endurance practitioners around you there as part of the British team. We've featured several of them in the past on expert editions. Obviously, your own physiotherapist, Ollie Williamson, across a double-header expert edition, talking about navigating triathlon and endurance injuries. Chris Brammer around running biomechanics, and Phil Burt around bike fit and cycling-related injuries. So you've got some terrific minds around you. What have you learned around fueling over the years? Obviously, you've already mentioned supplementing with calcium, etc., with heavy sweat rates, but what else?
Yeah, that's quite a big one, supplementing. I think I learned a lot that fueling around training was really important for me because I live at the other side of Leeds. It can be up to an hour traveling from sessions to sessions. So I'm out of the door, like 6 a.m. I might not be home till 3 and I've still got a few sessions to do when I get home. And back in the day, I used to probably go a long time without fueling just because the day goes so fast, moving from one place to another, traveling, and I wasn't probably eating. I was eating enough, but not around the sessions. So I've tried to make sure I'm prepared when I go out the door, that I've got enough snacking and things like that to when I'm training. And on the bike as well, because it's so cold here sometimes you don't want to, it's really hard to get things out your pocket with all your, big gloves on. And I probably didn't fuel enough riding. Over the years, I've changed that a lot to make sure that when I'm eating, it's around training rather than all at the back end of the day when I've got time, I'm snacking more. So, yeah, basically, I like to try and fuel around training to maximise recovery and to help me in the sessions.
Yeah, it's just such a huge and important topic, and something that I was surprised at Christmas Eve last year. I didn't training for some triathlons this year, returned to the sport after really an 8-year hiatus, and ended up with yet again another bone stress injury in my lesser trochanter, in my femoral neck. And I felt for once I'd been smart with my run training loads, but my bike loads had really gone up with, some racing, etc. And I realised that I'm underfueled, and I work off an all day in the clinic, and sometimes lunch is hard to get. And, the work rate had gone up, but my fueling probably hadn't gone up. It is just such an important topic for athletes, and almost one that I think most athletes have to get wrong at some point to then truly learn. I think back at the way around it. I think back to what we used to do as juniors. We'd do a hard swim session, not eat breakfast for an hour and a half. Same with riding. You don't sometimes feel like eating, but you've got that window of time and you've really got to maximize it after a session, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of the time I've done it before where, I'll go out on the bike for 4.5 hours. I probably don't have anything to eat. And I think if I was sat at home for 4 hours or 4.5 hours, there'd be no way that I wouldn't not eat in that time. But in fact, I'm actually on the bike exercising and not eating. So it's like, how, you can't believe you do it. But the bad thing is, in a way, that your body adapts to it and it will do it. So when I used to swim, like you say, I'd do 2 hours every morning with probably no fueling, and it didn't bother me. It's not good for you. So it's really difficult if your body's not telling you to fuel sometimes. You've just got to, make sure you're prepared to do it. So I am quite structured in getting things ready and making sure I have certain things. And it's definitely something I've learned, and I'm a bit paranoid about making sure I have enough fuel. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a good paranoia. And Dr. Margot Mountjoy, IOC doctor, and really the pioneer for the term relative energy deficiency in sport, she comments around, the need to be prepared for the session and maximising that window. So, yeah, it's something we can all keep at the top of our minds. And hunger, as she says, Dr. Margot Mountjoy, is a bad indicator for fueling. If we wait until we're hungry, we've missed the boat. So,
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Great learnings there, Jess. If you had to boil everything you've learnt to date through your journey from the supermarket to be Olympic triathlete into one piece of advice to help listeners of this show perform at their physical best, what would Jess Learmonth's single piece of advice be?
I'd probably say find enjoyment and make things easy. So I think that if you've got enjoyment in your training And if you make it easy for you to get out and do things, then you're going to perform at your best. I think a lot of people lose sight of enjoyment, and they don't realise that, they feel that it's a job, or, if you're an elite, you don't have to enjoy things. But I think the more that you enjoy your training, and then it kind of passes down, the more you relaxed you are, the more you look forward to racing. So I think if you lose enjoyment, things start building up. You feel a bit stressed. You don't perform well in training, because then you don't feel like you're going to perform well racing. So it kind of has a knock-on effect. And I think if you find enjoyment and take it back to basics, then you'll probably end up performing better in the long run. So I think just enjoy training and make things easy. Like recently, John has built a gym in the garden, and even just that, it's made my life a lot easier, and it makes me enjoy things a lot more. So like now, I don't have to go to the gym to the Brownlee Centre 40 minutes away or whatever. I just go in the garden and I take my time in doing it. I do it a lot better than I would rushing at the Brownlee Centre. Just things like that, just make things simple, and then you'll gain from it. That's
so find enjoyment and make things simple, although building a gym in the garden doesn't sound too simple to me.
It definitely was simple. But, it was a good lockdown project. So
good on John. I don't think I've seen a video or a photo of this garden gym up on your Instagram gallery yet, Jess, so it might be high time.
Yeah, I know. I keep meaning to do that, but I will at some point.
Watch this space. Jess, physical challenge for the week. Every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge. So this can be entry level or extremely difficult. What is Jess Learmonth's physical challenge going to be?
So it's not a hard challenge. It's just 5 minutes in the day. So I usually do it on an evening. No phones or anything. And it's basically just focusing on breathing. I struggle massively with breathing. I've kind of had to train my body to breathe better, basically. I know it sounds stupid, but I think coming from a swimming background, I breathe from the up end of my chest rather than my stomach. So I've had to kind of train my body to breathe from my stomach for my running and riding. I just do, like some deep breathing from your belly, just laid down on your back with your hands on your stomach, and try and breathe from your belly and just relax basically before bed or in the morning. So just 5 minutes of breathing exercises. So nothing too tough.
That's great. Jess Learmonth's 5-minute breathing exercise challenge. I'm curious, is that something you self-arrived at, or was it pointed out to you that you really needed to work on your breathing?
I can never remember what it's called. It's ELO. So it's in my esophagus. I kind of have real bad issues of exhaling. So it's kind of like exercise-induced asthma, but it's the opposite. And it's been quite a problem for me. So I have had to do a lot of work on trying to relax all my esophagus and that sort of area. So it's a big thing for me. That's why, I don't know if you've noticed, but I kind of sometimes race with a breathe strip on as well, just to kind of help me breathe, because I do struggle quite a lot with it.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. We've featured ear, nose and throat specialist from Australia here on recent expert editions around nasal obstruction, and 1 in 3 people, let alone athletes, will experience some degree of it. Now, that might be different to your esophagus concern you mentioned there, but I think all that aside, a few minutes of tuning in on our breath can only be a good thing, even if not just for the stress levels, anxiety levels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll chill you out a little bit.
The power of the breath. Jess, obviously, as you've touched on, there's still uncertainty for the year ahead. You've got a great team around you. Your coach, Liam, there at Leeds, terrific squad. What creates such a good environment? What do you think are the characteristics there of such a seemingly great, cohesive team?
Just a laid-back atmosphere, and again, I know I keep saying it, but enjoyment and, I don't know, just a bit of fun in the group. You've just got to enjoy what you're doing, and no one's uptight, or we don't have anybody that's hierarchy, or anything like that. And I think it just creates a nice environment for everybody to come and swim. And yeah, I think Liam's done a great job at Leeds, and he makes the sessions interesting, and he gets feedback from us all. So it works really well. So we're very lucky.
A winning formula to date, that's for sure. And where might we see Jess Learmonth popping up between now and Tokyo? Any ideas, or season unplanned at this stage?
Yeah, kind of going with the flow, I guess. But yeah, probably the first one will be, I'm just going to go focus on World Series. So I guess May, hopefully. That's. Is it May? I think this one in May.
I have a feeling. Yokohama, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so hopefully May, Yokohama.
May, Yokohama. And if listeners want to follow the journey, see this garden gym and see your underwater stroke, where can we find you on social, Jess?
On social media, I've got Instagram account, which is JL Learmonth, and not Jill, that people think I'm called Jill. And then Twitter, I think it's just Jess_Learmonth. But there's not that many Learmonths about, so I think they'll figure it out.
They'll find you easily. Well, Jess, thank you for sharing on your career highs, lows and learnings. There's still plenty of chapters to be written in your journey, and certainly wish you all the best, there in the UK at the moment, navigating the start and beyond of 2021 leading to Tokyo.
Thanks so much for having me, Brad.
So there you have it, another episode of the Physica Performance Show. And I trust and I know you enjoyed the great personality that is Jess Learmonth. What a story. And yet there are more chapters still being written. If you'd like to reach out to Jess and let her know what it was that you enjoyed from her sharings an episode, you can find Jess over on Instagram at Jess Learmonth. Whilst there, you can also tag in the show at Physica Performance Show for a podsy. That's simply a screenshot of the episode you're enjoying at any given moment. And of course, you'll find us on Facebook and YouTube. If you have feedback regarding the show, we are always interested in improving. You can reach me at Brad_beer on social, or directly via an email, b.beer@pogophysio.com.au. Massive thanks again to this week's sponsor, Precision Hydration. If you are an endurance athlete or working in the field, jump online and take their free sweat test. Find out how concentrated your sweat actually is, and off the back of that, develop your best hydration strategy for your next upcoming event and your racing. And in addition, you can get 15% off your first electrolyte order by using the code PERFORMANCE, one word, capitals 15 at precisionhydration.com. Don't forget to check out the Patreon Learnings membership, where you can receive complimentary access to our back catalogue and all upcoming live stream events for your pledge support of the show and its production from just $5 per month over on Patreon. Just search the Physica Performance Show. Massive thanks as always to those leaving ratings and reviews for the show. They are always so much fun to read, so thank you in advance for anyone rating the show over on iTunes. As always, thanks to the great team that make this show possible: Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Walding on all things show graphic design. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physica Performance Show, we keep the featured performer theme going, and we jump back across the ditch to New Zealand to catch up with triathlon's long-distance star, Kyle Smith. Now, if you follow Kyle on Instagram, you know he's quite the character. His race reports are riveting. Thus far in his career, he is undefeated across the 70.3 half Ironman distance. And at the time of recording, we were just over 1 week out from his outing in Ironman New Zealand. So be sure to be tuning in next week to Kyle Smith. Until then, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physica Performance Show.